So I just want to have a short stream or a short video, more for myself as usual than anybody else. Um, Mainly because I recently watched a good show that became not very good, and by talking about it and writing about it, I kind of put it to rest in my mind. So I have to, I don't have to think about it anymore. I can just be like, this is what I thought. I'm moving on with my life. Um, because if I didn't do this, if I kept thinking about it, um, I wouldn't have closure to a series I thought was so good, and then just like shot itself in the foot. Um, so here we are. Uh, the series is Alchemy of Souls. If you haven't figured that out by the title, um, this video is going to have spoilers for all of Alchemy of Souls. Um, it's also going to have computer issues apparently because I can't highlight this anymore. I can highlight that, but I can't highlight down here. That's annoying. Okay, I can only highlight this part. I can't highlight anything else. Whatever. So Alchemy of Souls. This is a K-drama, came out last year, at least the first part. The second part came out this year. Watched it totally by coincidence, and I fell in love with it like almost immediately. Well, okay, initially I thought it was awful. I didn't understand the genre that it was in. I thought it was like a body swap genre, and then I thought it was a revenge genre, and it just turned out to be a drama. It was just like a love story, which is cool. It's fine. It was really good, actually. It was so good I binged the whole thing in like a week, and it's 30 hours. So that should say something. But obviously, because I have rewritten part two, I thought part two or season two was not good. Oh yeah, point is, spoilers. There can be spoilers. Please go watch Alchemy of Souls season one, at least, before watching this video, because it's so good. The chemistry between the characters is really good. And I don't want to say anything else about it before getting into spoilers. So here are the spoilers. Let me see. So the main reasons why I want to do this rewrite, or I wanted to, and by the way, this is not like a line for line rewrite. I don't care enough to redo every line of dialogue. That would be like a job I'd have to get paid for. This is like my thoughts as to how the plot of season two or part two could have been better. And when I say better, I got to start with the problems. What were the problems of season two? Well, the main problem was I think in the community they're called female lead and male lead. I don't really like that title. I kind of just like, how do I want to say it? Like leading man and leading woman, perhaps would be better. Talking about their sex instead of their gender is kind of weird, but anyway, not the point. Point is, Naksu or Mudoge or Jin Buyon or Choye, she has like 50 names, whatever. That actress changed in part two. And the actress for part one was so good. And the actress for part two, I mean, maybe she's also good in other roles. I don't know. I haven't seen her in other roles. But here, it just doesn't work at all. The actress doesn't convey the character that people had known for 20 hours prior. And of course, there's a reason for that. The reason is she has amnesia. But that reason is incredibly unsatisfying. One, because amnesia is boring. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is, even after the amnesia goes away, she still doesn't remind the viewer of the original character, of Muroge. So it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating to have a character that the audience is rooted for 20 hours both go away and not go away, right? Because she disappears at the end of season one, or part one. And then the viewer is told that she is this other person. She's come back in the soul, right? Or really, it's the same body, although it's not the same body. Whatever, not the point. Point is, the viewer is told that this is the same character, and it's not, right? Even when she regains her memories, she doesn't act at all like the other character. The other character never comes back. So that was really frustrating. Let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to say there? Yeah, the amnesia also kind of undoes the cliffhanger conclusion, the dramatic conclusion of part one. This person who just, from everybody else's point of view, betrayed them, started killing people, and ran away, doesn't face any consequences. They just disappear. And so the resolution lingers. It doesn't happen. And that was kind of frustrating, right? It's kind of like the writers just wanted to reset the show afterwards. They didn't want to deal with the fallout that would cause upon, the relationships of the different characters. Besides a few, there are a few characters who have their relationship dramatically changed. But Naksu doesn't confront any of them, which is frustrating. Okay, so that's the biggest problem. The smaller problems, the theme. So there are quite a few themes of the show, and I didn't pick out most of them. I've only picked out one here that I thought kind of got ignored. So the show is called Alchemy of Souls. By the end of part 2, we still don't really understand what a soul is. What is it? Where does it go? How does it move? How does it change in the Alchemy of Souls? What really is this ice cube that controls souls? That kind of becomes a secondary focus to the main question of part 2, which is, who is Jinbuyon? Is it this daughter, or is it this reincarnation of the lover of the original founder of this place? Or is it Naksu? That seems to not matter as much, at least to me, compared to the bigger questions about what souls are and what this whole universe is, what this world is that the creators have built. So I wanted to focus a little more on that in the rewrite. And I don't actually flesh it out. I kind of just hand wave and say, the creators should figure this stuff out. They should actually figure out what a soul is and where it goes and how it goes, how a soul can be bound to an item. With Jinwoyon, this storehouse of sorceress relics, the souls escape in part of part 2. I'm like, how does that work? How does a soul move around without a body? It also happens in, I don't remember what it's called. There's this prison where a soul also haunts the female lead. So anyway, souls. And another huge, I wish I could highlight this, but I can't. A huge plot hole, I think, in part 2 is no one really tried to figure out, nobody really cared about why Naksu or Mudoge went on this rampage and just 180'd and started killing people. It was just accepted that, she's Naksu, she had, this revenge fantasy, wanted to kill people that killed her father. And, that's just what happens to soul shifters as they run wild. People didn't, stop for a second. When she was with Janguk, and she stabbed him in the heart, and she finally comes to her senses again, and is like, oh my god, I did this. And then, gets a headache and snaps back into her rampage mode. There were 30 people watching that happen. Nobody was like, hey, wait, now she's crying in tears and is remorseful. And she stopped being remorseful. That was kind of weird, right? What was happening to her there? No, they're all just they didn't care. Nobody cared. They just hand waved it away. And when it finally does get figured out, I don't remember who figured it out. But it's just not a big deal. It's it wasn't her fault. Maybe this will make you feel less pain for what you did. Who was it? It was Seol. It's just not a big deal. It ends up not mattering. I think it should have mattered a lot about why she did what she did, given that people who knew her knew that she gave that life up. So anyway, Those are the problems. Getting into the solutions. And the solutions have to start with a slight change to episode 18, to part 1. And this change results in Janguk not having the whole ice cube. So he's not the super overpowered, undefeatable, monster that we see in part 2. Instead, both Mudoge and Janguk have to dispel the ice barrier together. And when they do that, each should get half. So each of them should become just as powerful as one another. And not super overpowered, right? Not talking about having a whole ice stone, but just having their cores of energy like really, really increased. Why is that important? Well, for plot reasons, my plot, as we'll see later, but also a big problem in the ending, I think, is just the unintentional sexism that occurs in the end of part 2 when Muroge, Naksu, whatever, gains all of her memories back and all of her divine powers. When her and Janguk go to fight in the epilogue, they go to fight these spirits that have escaped Jinyowon. Muroge is behind him without a weapon. Like Janguk is in the lead with the full power of the ice stone. He's like the super, most strongest person on the planet, I guess. I don't know. And then Muroge is just sitting there, like, oh yeah, I got divine powers, but I'm not as strong as you, right? I don't even have my own weapon. You are using my weapon now. It's like, why is she not using her own weapon again? Why does there have to be this power dynamic between y'all at the end, right? In the beginning, it was really fun because on one hand, there was a power dynamic where he was a master and she was a servant, and on the other hand, she was the master and he was a pupil, right? So they had reverse power dynamics, or they had, I don't even know how to frame it. You know what I'm talking about. They had two power dynamics that were opposite. And at the end, it seems like they just settled into a place where he was just stronger than her, period. And I don't think that should happen. I think ultimately they should be equally powerful throughout the show, or at least throughout part 2. So, okay, go on to part 1, episode 20. I think the main catalyst of the story should not be anything like a Firebird being the main problem, or Jinmu's crafting up some silly scheme again. It should be Jinmu wanting power. That's always been another one of the main themes of the show. Jinmu wanting power over the world, power over others. That's kind of what ends up happening in part 2 anyway. I just want it to be more clear, even from the beginning. And this change I'm about to say also has the intended consequence or side effect of keeping the same actress from Mudoge. She doesn't have to petrify and become somebody else or whatever. It's still going to be her. And this change will also allow for the consequences of the end of part 1 to come to light, to bear out. So what are the changes? Well, those rampage bells that Jinmu has from Shaman Choi, those should only be copies of the true artifact, in the same way that the Firebird statues in part 2 are only imitations of the real Firebird. They only assist it. They're not, they don't have the same kind of power. So those bells Jinmu used to kill the female lead's father and to control her are not the real thing, right? And the real thing I'm calling soul chains. You could call them whatever you want, soul bells, doesn't matter. Point is, they are something that can allow you to control people's souls, especially people's souls that have shifted. Because if a soul shifts, then it becomes unattached from your original body, and easier to manipulate, I guess, is the way you could phrase it. So what Jinmu wants to do while controlling Muroge is not just to kill this dad, Jinutak. And sorry for my pronunciation, it's crap. He doesn't want to just kill this father, but he wants to break into Jinyuan and take the soul chains, which he does anyway, right? He ends up doing that in part 2 when he breaks in and takes the Firebird. So it's kind of weird to me that he would possess his strongest assassin to kill this dude and then die, and then later he has to come back to the same place and break into their vault to take the Firebird. He should just do it all now, right? Possess Muroge, take control of her, kill this loose thread, and break into Jinyuan, take the soul chains. So what does that mean? Well, it means the scene in part 2 where sorry for the pronunciation again, Jin Ho-gyeong and maidservant Kim are killed in Jinyuan as they're trying to stop the spirits from coming out. Park Jin has to close the door on them just as he does in part 2. Jinyuan collapses. So all this is kind of similar to what ends up happening, right? Main lead dies, blah, blah, blah. A difference here is I don't want him to immediately be resurrected, right? I think it was a little too quick. The audience should have some more suspense there as to whether or not he actually comes back. And the characters in the show should also not think he comes back for a little while. And again, like I said, having the soul chains, having complete control over Muroge's soul means that she doesn't petrify. Jinmu just gets control of her forever. So that's the end of part 1. It should end on this, very heavy note, just like it originally does. In even worse state, right? Because the male lead is dead, and the female lead should be like mind controlled, basically. So okay, going into part 2. This is the rewrite for real now. Similar to last time, or similar to the original show, the male lead's resurrected in the same way. But Seol, because he knew the identity of Naksu and didn't say anything, that gets found out. He goes to jail. Like, I don't know, life in prison, whatever. So he's in jail. Also, Park Dangu's hesitance to kill Naksu, same like last time, results in his wife hating him. And I actually think they should play that up. I think she should be really pissed that his inaction led to the death of her father. So Songgrim, Jinyuan are entirely estranged. They are going to end up courting different factions to join their side. Jin Shoyong needs other families in order to get back the sorceress, souls and artifacts that have left Jinyuan. She can't count on any of the main cast, any of the current main characters to do it. She's pissed at them, or they're in jail, or they're off doing their own thing. So she needs other families to help, and that's where Jinwoo's going to come in, and Jinwoo's going to be able to indirectly work his way inside this faction in the same way that he does in part 2 when he ends up convincing all of the other masters, all the other leaders of the families to join his side in part 2. The same thing is going to happen with Jin Choyong's faction. However, unlike part 2, Jinmu is obviously the bad guy, right? Everybody knows at the end of part 1, Jinmu is bad. He gets saved by the prince, by the crown prince at the end of part 1. He shouldn't have been, right? People are like, this dude is a dick. We would kill him on sight, kind of thing, right? So he has to hide away in the mountains. He obviously can't hide in the same mountains he did while training Naksu. Go somewhere else. There are a lot of mountains, whatever. Go to a different mountain. He also weakens over time because controlling another person's soul completely should lessen your own control over your own soul. So he starts getting really weak and losing his own like torrent of energy. However, because he's able to fully control a revived, like full power Naxu, or it's even over full power because Naxu has half of an ice stone, she is going to grow his shadow army, right? His Cabal army that we see in part 2. Like they all get killed by Janguk, but that doesn't happen here. Instead, they grow in power and strength, and they also infiltrate different factions like last time. And same as in the original part 2, the male lead is very powerful, brooding. He's not as powerful, but he's incredibly strong. He's estranged from everyone. He's hunting down those soul shifters. But that's not the main thing he's doing. The main thing he should have been doing in part 2 is figuring out what the fuck just happened, right? He's got to figure out why Muroge betrayed him and killed him. So that's really his MO, right? That's what he's after. Same as the original, Park Jin resigns as Gwonju, but instead of just being this passive force that like plants stuff and is comedic relief in part 2, in the same way that he was a dick and a like harsh tutor to Janguk, he should harshly tutor Park Dang-gu, the new Gwonju, to be objective, right? Because that was always Park Jin's character, is like, I have to be objective over my own relationships, right? So he has to double down on that and become bitter, especially because he lost maidservant Kim. And what he's trying to do is hold the whole country together, right? Because Jin Choyong is splitting it into 2 different factions. She's trying to ignore the Songgrim side and just recruit people to help her family get those artifacts back. So the country is breaking down into 2 big factions. While that's going on, the male lead has to break Seol out of prison because he knows Seol's the only other person who was really like close to Naxu. And so he needs his help to figure out why Naxu did what she did. So together they raid the Forbidden Archives, right? That was in Songgrim. I can't even pronounce this, I'm sorry. Zhongjingak? I don't know. In search of what souls are and how people can control them. Because they have a hunch that Muroge was like manipulated. That wasn't her desires. Wasn't her real doing. And that's the one thing I haven't really fleshed out. Like, what did they actually find? I don't know. They somehow figure out some, ancient truths about life and existence through that. And this is the first 5 episodes. I feel like you could wrap this up in 10 episodes, just like the original part 2. Maybe it would have to be 20. I'm not really sure. Maybe you can add some more twists. But anyway, just a basic overview. Going through the other episodes. Actually, this should be episodes 6 through 10, because this is episodes 1 to 5. Whatever. Episodes 6 through 10. Jinmu's weakening, right? Through using those soul chains. He needs the Ice Stone to gain power to not die, right? So kind of the same thing happens from the original part 2. He doesn't want to soul shift himself. He didn't want to soul shift in part 1 either. So he's after the Ice Stone. While this is happening, Janguk runs into Naxu. He plans this attack on Jinmu's secret base. He understands a little more about what souls are and how they're controlled. And so this is like a huge fight in the middle of the season. It's Janguk versus Naxu. They're both gravely wounded. They both almost die. Somehow, through however you want to say it, Muroge snaps out of the soul chain's control. Seol and Janguk figure out how people can actually control their own souls, how artifacts allow other people to control their souls. So they really get into the ontology of the world. And through it, Janguk allows himself to be gravely wounded to snap Naksu out of it. And she does snap out of it. They both have to retreat, though, from the fight. They're both almost dead. But she realizes everything that she's done, while also recognizing that the whole world hates her, just like the whole world hates Jinmu. So, kind of, it's a parallel to what happened at the beginning of her life, that Jinmu was the only one there for her. And so she has to rely on Jinmu. She has to return to him and just pretend to still be controlled, right? And then, because he's so weak, he's so out of it, he just heals her. He doesn't notice that she has stopped being controlled. She still pretends that she's controlled. It's not like there's a mark on your forehead saying, I'm controlled. It's something in your soul that's not as easy to detect, right? So, okay, that happens. Like I said, the Shadow Cabal's infiltrated a lot of the major families, especially Jin Choyon's faction. This is actually wrong. I wanted to say the female lead tries to sabotage Jinmu's Shadow Cabal. So pretend that was FL instead of ML right here. Because Muroge is now free from the control of the soul chains. She is like fucking up the Shadow Cabal, although Jinmu does not notice. So she is like messing with their swords, messing with their recruitment, convincing some of them to turn away or to like care about their own financial interests. Just every way that she can. You could have a whole episode or two about this, or at least part of multiple episodes, is her just trying to mess with the Shadow Cabal to make them weaker. So also in the same way that Jinmu is going to summon the Ice Stone, just like the way the first Ice Stone was summoned, he has to dry out the lake. He doesn't have to raid Jinyuan to do it. Through his research while he was weakened, he recognizes that the Firebird would be a good way to do it. You don't need a ton of episodes about having those little Firebird statues everywhere. No, the Firebird should just be strong enough by itself to evaporate the lake. You know, it doesn't need assistance. The Firebirds also escaped, just like a lot of these other spirits. Like Jin Choyon is not making a mistake, right? When she allies those other factions to help find the escaped artifacts, she needed to do that, right? To save her family and also to save the whole country, because things as strong as the Firebird have escaped, right? So Jinmu either finds the Firebird or he lures the Firebird to the lake, and that's going to be his plan. So what happens? Well, initially, the final fight at the lake is between Park Dangu's group of factions, led by Songgrim, and Jin Choyon's. But Jin Choyon is ahead on like power, right? Park Dangu's faction is really just existing to kind of stop factionalism. It's like the faction against factionalism. So it's kind of silly. I mean, it's written to be kind of silly. Jin Choyon's faction is just trying to, save the world. They seem good from a certain point of view, although they are splitting the country in half, right? And also, Jinmu's infiltrated them. So a lot of them really want to use the powers of the sorceress relics that they're finding, not necessarily give them back. So through all this tension, the two lovers are able to overcome their objectivity and team up. So when it seems like the good guys, Park Dangu's faction, is on the verge of defeat, Jin Choyon, has some revelations, like romantic revelations, and also revelations about what is going on with like Jinmu controlling her faction and trying to split the country apart, and they team up. But it doesn't matter. The moment they team up and it looks like the good guys are going to win, Jinmu appears, summoning the Firebird, drying the lake, and getting the Ice Stone. So now he is a full Ice Stone. This is not a like reverse Ice Stone that happens in part 2. That's just like unexplained. This is an Ice Stone that has no energy. What are you talking about? ice stones are not supposed to run out of energy. They are like supposed to be a catalyst of energy. So he is a full ice stone. He reveals that Shadow Cabal army, and with the ice stone power, he's not weakening anymore. So he can use the soul chains a lot more, and he ends up controlling a ton of the soul shifters in Jin Choyon's faction. Also at this time, during this final fight, he finds out about Muroge's sabotage. And he's pissed, but it's too late. The Shadow Cabal army is a lot weaker than he thought they would be during the fight. So he tries to kill her. She runs away because, it's chaos, there's fighting. Tries to find Jungkook, but Jungkook is still researching. He's still like nowhere to be found. And so she finds Seol, and this love triangle is going to be preserved until the end, right? Until the last moment where she finally finds Jungkook again. And he not only is super powerful, but also super knowledgeable about souls and about life. Ultimately, they do find each other, because both of them have the power of half an ice stone. Math, it should equal the power of one ice stone. So they're able to fight against Jinwoo's forces, and because Jungkook has figured out the true nature of souls, that he tells people they can resist. This is another typo. Fuck. They can resist the soul chains' power and overcome Jinwoo. So that, I think, is a narrative, is a conclusion that is much more faithful to part one and to the major story beats, the major themes of the story. And like really is true to the character of Naksu being a badass, right? She is not going to be some amnesiac damsel in distress. She's going to be just as strong as Jungkook. She's going to be training the bad guys, training the Shadow Cabal, but she's going to be in a position of power. She's going to eventually team up with Jungkook again. Everybody's going to see exactly what happened to her. Jungkook figures it out. And she is like half of the force that saved the day, combined with Jungkook. So I think this plot is a lot more satisfying than what we got, which is kind of sad because part one was so good. The chemistry between Muroge and Jungkook really carried the whole show. Something missing here, because I didn't actually write very much. Something missing here is the Crown Prince's relationship with Muroge. So if anybody wants to figure out how that would go, you can. I was thinking maybe he infiltrates Jinwoo's faction in kind of the same way that he did in part two, right? He figured out who all the soul shifters were because he pretended to agree with Jinwoo. Maybe he could do the same thing. The king and queen in part two just really pissed me off. Like, it seemed like they just did a heel face turn, a big 180, and the queen went from, my life was literally ruined and I almost died from the Alchemy of Souls, to, oh yeah, I love the Alchemy of Souls. I'm definitely going to use it to get another body. It's like she just forgot about herself, right? Her character was just ruined. And the king, the king stayed in character. He's just incompetent, is the character. So yeah, he would just ally with Jinwoo. But I don't really know how their characters would fit into this. Probably with supporting roles. They'd somehow be important in this factionalism, this split of the capital. Perhaps the Crown Prince can take over, can do a coup against him sooner, and then ally with Jinwoo, or pretend to ally with Jinwoo. That'd be cool. But overall, yeah, I recommend part one. I'm glad that I sat and thought about this for a little while, because I think I very quickly came up with something much better than we actually got in part two. However, it's kind of like hindsight bias. Like the only way I could have come up with something better is if there was something worse that was created in the first place. Maybe I couldn't have done this if there was no part two. But I also feel like this is a pretty natural conclusion, or sorry, a pretty natural continuation from part two. It just makes sense to me, right? So tell me what y'all think. Tell me if it makes sense as well, or if there's anything you'd change. I think it's all pretty good. Oh, I guess the one last thing is because I changed the kind of point of the story from like who is Jinbuyon to what are souls, I kind of left out the importance of the body that Naksu was in. And the answer to that question is yes, I did leave it out because I don't want the actress to change. But maybe it can be in there somewhere. You know, if it's decided that it makes more sense to include the fact that the body she's in is really, you know, the reincarnation of this ancient priestess. That's why it's so powerful. Sure, you know, it's fine. Just as long as it's a side point and it doesn't change the actress. And really the whole reason it was there is to get Jinyuwon back on the picture, right? Because the mother was really conflicted. The mother wanted to resurrect her, but also lock her away because she knew she was Naksu. But the mother's dead in my version of the story. She dies in episode 20 of part 1. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the show. I guess the other good thing that came out of the show, besides an incredible part 1, was that now I'm really interested in watching a lot more K-dramas, even though I have no interest in Korean, the language. I'd really like to watch J-dramas because I want to learn more Japanese. So I'm watching this, Mr. Nietzsche in the Convenience Store, which is just right up my alley. It's like The Office plus philosophy plus fucking 7-Eleven, which is great. And these are all of the shows that people have said are similar or good, you know, and somehow related to Alchemy of Souls. So if anyone else is interested, if anybody else watched Alchemy of Souls and was disappointed in season 2 like me, here are some recommendations. Tale of the Nine-Tailed. I can't say anything about them. I haven't seen them yet. Love Between Fairy and Devil apparently is similar. Seirei no Moribito, the J-drama. Hotel de Luna. This is ranked like number 11, so you know this is going to be good. Relatedly, Goblin ranked number 1 in popularity. So yeah, this one's probably good if it's the most popular. Mr. Queen. This is another body swapping show, I think. And then I just found this one today. Moon Lovers Scarlet Heart Riel. I don't even remember what this is. So there are way too many. There are way too many good K-dramas. So ultimately, I shouldn't be that disappointed that Alchemy of Souls Season 2 or Part 2 was not that good. I got like 19 and a half excellent episodes. So, yeah, it's fine. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like a Death Note situation, right? The first half of Death Note was incredible. It was one of the best anime stories I've ever seen. The music was great. The suspense was great. The psychology was great. The characters were great and the relationships. And then part 2 happened and it just ruined everything. It just threw the characters under the bus. It replaced an excellent character with 2 uninteresting ones. And the same thing happened here. So I guess the ultimate question is, can I recommend Death Note? And the answer is yes. Even if you have to be really upset that part 2 is bad, part 1 is just so good that it's kind of worth it. But it pains me to recommend it, and I wish it didn't. I wish it didn't pain me to recommend it. All right, that's all I have to say.